about a year and a half, Con Edison has sponsored us to hold events where we can bring policymakers and thought leaders to engage with community residents around the issues that matter to our communities. So we're very happy to have our Beauty Inside Out event tonight. But before I introduce our panelists, let me just tell you a little about React. And I know I see a lot of our friends and colleagues and board members here tonight. But React, of course, is celebrating our 31st year of engaging community residents to really work to address the environmental policies that really matter to our lives, to our families, and to our communities. We are a membership-based organization, and we want to ensure that community residents are fully engaged in developing the policies that really matter to us. And so why are we talking about Beauty Inside Out? Well, as an environmental justice organization, we realize that we are disproportionately impacted by a variety of polluting facilities and pollution. And we also understand that most of the chemicals that we experience in our consumer products, beauty products, hair products, most of them have never been tested. So when you walk into a drugstore, you probably think, well, everything on the shelves is safe. They've been tested by the EPA or the Federal Drug Administration. Well, actually, only a handful of chemicals have ever been tested. And so what we realized from a range of research is that there are numbers of toxins in our everyday products that we all use, and sometimes we're finding that each of us probably use 10 or more products a day. But we understand that there are toxins in those products that have reproductive impacts and a whole range of other negative health impacts. And so that's what we want to talk to you about tonight. And I also just want to also mention that we have been able to map the 99-cent stores that are in our communities. And in those stores is where we often see a range of products that have bad chemicals in them, that are often products that may be illegal, may have mercury in them, may be imported from places that do not have the same level of regulation that we have here in this country. And so again, the 99-cent stores are not good places for us to be purchasing products. And even the drugstores like the CVS or Duane Reade, you really need to be careful, and you really need to have done research on the kinds of products that you should be buying. So I'm going to end my remarks by saying we are a membership-based organization. If you would like to become a member for $25 today, you will get a free t-shirt, Beauty Inside Out, and we would love, there's our model right there. Dana is modeling our t-shirt. So we'd love for you to have one if you would like to join us. So thank you very much for coming out tonight on a very cold day. I want to first begin by introducing you to our Assemblywoman, Carmen Della Rosa. And Carmen is a career public servant and a lifelong resident of Inwood in northern Manhattan. And in November 2016, she was elected to the New York State Assembly, becoming the second woman to ever represent the 72nd Assembly District. Now, she currently serves on the Banking, Corrections, Corporations, Authorities and Commissions, Housing and Mental Health Committees. And she's passionate about using government as a tool for social change and as a vehicle to empower and support communities. She lives with her husband and her daughter and looks forward to continuing to serve and bring about progressive change in the New York State Legislature for the community which she deeply loves and generally cares for. So please welcome our Assemblywoman, Carmen Della Rosa.
Uptown Chats possible. And I want to thank this distinguished panel here. I'm so excited to learn more about beauty and how we take care of ourselves based on what we put out there, but also what products we're using to elevate that beauty. As Peggy said, I was elected in 2016 to represent my Northern Manhattan community of Washington Heights. And being from Washington Heights, I didn't really learn too much about the environment growing up. But I quickly learned that as people of color, as women, we have an active responsibility to not only learn about the environmental factors that are present in communities of color, in vulnerable communities, but also to stand up when we see injustices. And man, have we seen injustices in Upper Manhattan. We've seen, right, where our garbage disposal centers are put. We see where the garbage trucks are parked. We see how the 99-cent stores, as Peggy mentioned, exploit communities of color, exploit vulnerable communities. And now we have begun this conversation in the state legislature about feminine products, beauty products, that have toxins in them. And one of the things that I believe in is that access to information is important for our communities. Being able to educate them, being able to meet our communities where they are, and tell them, engage them in a conversation about what it really means to be healthy, what it means to live a lifestyle of wellness, without dictating to them what we want them to do. We're not here to dictate, but we're here to say that there has been a design when we see that chemicals that are sort of promoted to our communities are filled with things like colorism, right? When we as women of color are told that beauty is in lightening our skin, what does that mean for a young girl? And then those products are tainted with mercury, right? And so we're here to push back against those norms. We're here to say that we are beautiful as we are and as we choose to express ourselves, but also that the products that come into our community must not contain these chemicals that will lead to higher rates of cancer and diseases that we know are so prevalent in Black and Brown communities. I'm proud to be working with VACT. We are going to be introducing legislation banning mercury in beauty products. And I think that's important for us to engage in this conversation. Just this year, we passed legislation to make sure that the toxins that are in feminine hygiene products are removed, and that we also have access to the information about what these products contain. Transparency is so important, right? Because when we see a beautiful glossy magazine and it has a beauty product and we want to use it, we should know minimally what's in that product so that we can do the research to know what's going to be the effect of using that product. You know, I like to tell a story about my daughter. My husband is Haitian and Dominican, and I come from the Dominican Republic. And my daughter, I have a 5-year-old, came home and said to me that she wanted to have hair like Princess Elsa. Princess Elsa she's like German or something. She has very, very platinum blonde hair, long to her feet. And I said to her, you know, Mia, you'll never have Princess Elsa hair. Because where we come from, we're descendants of African slaves, and we can never look like Princess Elsa. But your curly hair is beautiful, and you are beautiful. And she said, well, Mommy, but I want to have straight hair. I said, well, the beauty of hair is that you can straighten it if you want to, and you can rock it curly if you want to. But only if that's what you want, right? Don't let what other people portray as being beautiful or being a princess influence who you are. And I'm still teaching her, right? Because our television, our programming, even for young girls, is tainted with this prescription of what beauty is supposed to look like. So since having those conversations with my daughter, I've also entered into my own natural hair journey, where I refuse to add heat to my hair. It's up today because of the weather yesterday. But I usually rock my curls out, and I've been told before, you know, that's not professional. Well, guess what? Being one of the youngest legislators in New York State, being one of the few Latinas, being one of the only women who represent Northern Manhattan, I think I'm professional enough, and my resume speaks for ourselves. So I want to leave you with those thoughts. to portray what beauty is and what health looks like in our communities. So with that, I hope you enjoy this panel. I know I will. Thank you for blessing us with your knowledge, and I look forward to continuing to work with you all. Thanks.
Isn't it great to have such a young, dynamic elected official in our community? Thank you very much. So I'm going to introduce our moderator for this evening. She is Newby. She is a graduate of Howard, so we're fellow alums. She's a member of Delta Sigma Theta. My mother pledged Delta, but the year she pledged, they were kicked off of campus. Didn't go through. But she is also a beauty writer for The Revelist, Glamour Magazine, The Brio, The Zoe Report, and Madame Noir. She writes about cosmetics, hair and industry trends, and most recently interviewed Tracy Ellis Ross on the launch of her new hair care line, Pattern. So Blake, please take it away.
Hi everybody, I'm so excited to be here. As Peggy said, my name is Blake Newby. I'm a freelance beauty writer here in New York City, and I spend my days writing about beauty products, beauty treatments, especially for women of color, Black and brown. So today we asked to put together a dynamic group of panelists that I'm so excited to introduce you to. So first, I will introduce you all to Kerene Tayloe. She is the Director of Federal Legislative Affairs for the Act. Next we have Kiana Michaan, and she's the Store Educator for Follain. We have Lubna Ahmed, who is the Director of Environmental Health for the Act. And Jasmine McDonald, PhD Associate Professor at Columbia University. So we have a lot to discuss tonight, so we're gonna get right into it. So basically the discussion has been broken up into three things. Problems, solutions, and things that we can do to change the issues that are going on in the beauty community surrounding ingredients, and things of that sort. So we're going to kick it off with problems. So this is for any of our panelists who would like to answer. So the beauty industry is of course notorious for ingredients that aren't the best for us, particularly in Black and brown communities. When it comes to women of color, who monetarily are the largest consumers of beauty products and have the most buying power in the beauty industry, how are we even more impacted and at a bigger risk?
Well, I would say that in general, when it comes to women of color, we're one of the highest consumers of these products, mainly because, as was mentioned, our hair texture. So the nature of our hair texture requires a different sort of chemical ingredients than those who are our counterparts. And with that, there are a lot of dangerous chemicals that are in majority of products. Now we have a lot of products coming out now that are much healthier. But one thing that we should be concerned about is even if you see different products that say phthalates are dangerous. Parabens, these are also dangerous. These are chemicals that the nation has found to be higher in minorities. So along the lines of thinking about personal care products or hair care products in general, these particular chemicals are just higher in general in minorities. But not only are they higher in general in minorities, as an epidemiologist, we look at associations between the prevalence of these different chemicals and outcomes. And so what we've also seen with the prevalence of parabens and phthalates that have been known to be harmful to our reproductive system, we've also seen that in minority populations, we also have higher rates of uterine fibroids, which are also associated with fertility issues, Minority women, especially Black women, have higher rates of endometrial cancer and breast cancer. And our young girls have the earliest age of pubertal development. As early as 5 years old, you can see Black girls developing breast, and we also have earlier ages at developing menarche. And all of these early factors are associated with the increased breast cancer risk. So if you think about when it comes to women of color, young girls are being set at the age of before puberty on this trajectory of increased breast cancer risk before they even reach menarche. So the moment a girl starts breast development starts that risk. The earlier age you have breast development, the higher your breast cancer risk. So in short, all of these chemicals in animals and humans have been associated with these reproductive issues, and women of color are some of the most subjected to these outcomes.
I will just speak a bit to why women of color are disproportionately impacted by a bunch of the things you just mentioned. So, first of all, women are disproportionately impacted by the effects of harmful ingredients in personal care products. So if you just begin by looking at the difference between men and women use an average of 12 products a day, men use an average of 6. So just all women across the board are statistically using a much higher number of personal care products. This is a fairly intuitive reason why women are more likely to use cosmetics, greater amount of hair products, just have more involved routines, which is really, when it comes down to it, a result of heavy marketing, I think, and toxic messages that we have from the media telling us that women are not enough as they are, and they need XYZ product to be enough, to look enough. And then we see that Black women statistically are using it's actually all women of color, but Black women in the US is the subset that uses the highest number of products. And once again, there's multiple reasons for this. One being different needs, hair texture you mentioned. I do want to say that I think there's a greater need for a different kind of hair with Black hair texture, but it's not one, in my view, that requires chemicals, since chemicals are such are new to our global environment, and our hair texture has existed for a very long time, predating that. But yeah, we have greater hair care needs, and just different beauty needs, so that's one reason for higher product usage. And then the second would be even greater toxic messaging from the media, really around white beauty standards. Only recently did New York pass that legislation to prevent discrimination of hair texture. So for so long, as was touched on before, right, hair texture and professionalism, you might have had a job that said you can't come to work with your hair looking as it is. And skin lightening creams, these further toxic messages that then those products are marketed to Black women. And then another point is that statistically, products marketed to women of color have been shown to have higher levels of toxic ingredients. The buying power of Black women in the beauty industry was mentioned before. In the Black hair care industry alone in the US, it's $2.5 billion. And Black women have about $1 trillion of buying power, right? So it's a huge issue for sure.
And just to reiterate, the buying power that exists in our community, just the cosmetic and beauty industry alone, that's $84 billion every year that's generated from just those industries particularly. And then when we do look at how women of color intersect here, that's $1.3 trillion from Black women, $1.7 trillion from Latina women. So again, not only are we, being marketed towards in very heavy amounts because we are targeted in so many different ways, and we're subjected to racial and gender norms in terms of how women should show up. But our buying power is that we should be able to demand that these companies not only create the products that we want and desire, but aren't harming us. And that's the concern that we have, not only here at We Act, but just broadly in this community. When we think about environmental justice, we typically think about the environment as where we work, live, play, pray, and go to school. But our body, our endocrine system is incredibly large. And as mentioned, you know, if women are using 12 products a day, that's potentially 168 toxic chemicals that they're taking in every single day into their system. So if we have trillions of dollars in our community in terms of buying power, let's demand and make sure that the products that are coming into our communities, whether it be through CVS, through a number of chains, or even the 99-cent store, which we know in many cases have very mediocre products, we must and we have the right to demand that those products cater to us and do not harm us.
And I know a little bit before this panel we were having the discussion about what actually is clean beauty. You hear it all the time, you see it all the time. It's broad. And Kiana was informing me, you know, looking for vegan and cruelty-free labels does not mean that what you're getting is clean beauty. So if you all can kind of touch on what clean beauty really is, what ingredients that can be included in vegan and cruelty-free products that still make it not clean and things like that.
So I suppose my first answer to this question, you might not like, it might not seem helpful, but there is no standard definition for clean beauty. So I can't really tell you what is clean beauty. In my eyes, it's completely subjective. I think a good comparison is clean eating, as we're seeing kind of the rise of that, right? What one person's clean eating is gonna look different from another person. So, you know, the company I work for, Follain, has one definition of clean beauty, and there's so many other companies that have a slightly different definition. So at the end of the day, I think as a consumer of products, the best thing you can do is just educate yourself on ingredients and what the potential concerns and harms are, so that when you're looking at a brand or a product, you can say, okay, you know, I'm not okay with using these ingredients because I'm aware, you know, there are these health concerns. And then if you see a brand, you're like, I like how they define clean beauty, right? It fits with some of my views. But I think since there is no legal definition right now, it is kind of, to an extent, a personal choice until we get better legislation that's protecting us as consumers. Just educating yourself about ingredients, and I think that, there's a lot to learn, and it's gonna vary from person to person what you might feel comfortable using. Some people might feel like they wanna be more stringent, some people less so, and I think just ask questions, right? So say there's a company, you're unsure about an ingredient, like reach out to them and ask them, see what they have to say about how their ingredient was, you know, produced or whatnot. See if you're satisfied with that response.
And I agree. Like, there's hard to say, like, there's a true definition of clean beauty. What you commonly see is a lot of products out there now that say, like, paraben-free, phthalate-free, and the parabens are added to products for preservation of shelf life, and phthalates are added for scent. So you'll see these products saying that these chemicals are not added, and a lot of people will take that as like, oh, this product is safe. But as a molecular epidemiologist, which means like I also look at the different molecules that are substituted for these products. So if a product sits on the shelf and it's paraben-free, something else had to be added to that product for it to sit on the shelf. If a product says phthalate-free and it smells good, something else had to be added to that particular product. So the concern is for a lot of environmental epidemiologists that we know the dangers of phthalates, we know the dangers of parabens, but we don't know the dangers of the substitutes that are going into the product. And so some environmental epidemiologists would suggest that you go with what you know because you don't know what you don't. My frame of mind when I think about clean products is to go with the least number of ingredients. So I also look at the order of the ingredients. So how ingredients in food is listed is the same way as chemical products or beauty products. So the first thing listed is the most concentrated ingredient, and the last one listed is the least concentrated. This is to note, oftentimes you'll see a product and it says scent. That's just code for phthalates. You don't have to write that a product has phthalates. So my general frame of mind for picking products for myself or my child is, can I pick a product that has the least number of ingredients? And also, this kind of jumps ahead, but I think about, we're talking about products that we use, like we use 12 products a day. Well, what products am I putting on my body that I'm washing off? So if it's a shampoo or a body lotion, a body wash, I may not be as vigilant, but for me, anything that is directly on my body, chronically every day, and sitting on my body, I'm way more vigilant. As Kiana said, it's a personal choice. You just have to be educated so that you can make that choice.
And Lubna, can you touch on kind of how even past the body, how these products are environmentally detrimental?
Yeah, so you have the human health effects that these chemicals have on the body, but as Jasmine mentioned, we either wash them off, or we let them out of our bodies through our urine, and they get into our environment and they bioaccumulate oftentimes in animals such as fish, and we are starting to see reproductive issues with different types of sea life, different types of fish. You see it in other animals as well, but you imagine if your entire surrounding environment is your water and that is your life source and it's full of these different chemicals that millions and millions of people are using, that is certainly going to affect the wildlife and the environment that those animals are living in.
And Kiana, I'm sorry, Jasmine, can you touch on how it affects the body?
Yes. As was mentioned by Kerene about the endocrine system, so a little bit of biology here. So you have an endocrine system, which is pretty much your hormonal system. And you have a natural hormonal system, everyone does, men and women. And you have endogenous, or endogenous means like natural to you, that regulates when a girl starts breast development, menarche, it regulates during pregnancy, etc., across the life course. And the parallel minus the pregnancy in men as well. The idea, though, is there's a lot of reproductive factors that are associated with disease. When we're thinking about women, some of these factors are the more children you have, the decreased risk you have for breast cancer. The later age that you start your period, the lower your risk of breast cancer. And the two things that this has in common is that you have a less amount of cycles as a woman. So when you're pregnant, you're not cycling through and having this constant influx of estrogen in your body. Why that's important is that estrogen has been associated, especially when it comes to breast cancer, with increased breast cancer risk. And that's because estrogen causes your cells to rapidly proliferate. And so every time you are growing more cells, you have more chance for damage to occur. And your body is excellent at correcting damage. But if you think about it, it's not perfect. So some damages aren't caught. And sometimes if the damage is not caught, it doesn't really matter. But some damages that aren't caught accumulate, which can lead to cancer. So that's endogenous. But now we're talking about introducing exogenous. And so when we talk about adding these products, personal care products, to our bodies, they're being absorbed into our skin, and they're exogenous supplies of something that we already know has carcinogenic effects. So these products can be estrogenic, so that means that now you have this bolus supply of estrogen that is not natural to you, that can cause your cells to proliferate and more damage. Some of them are anti-estrogenic, but that also causes problems. So in general, you're putting on your body a bolus of exogenous hormones that are not conducive to your reproductive system.
Moving on to ways that brands and stores are already combating the effects. Kiana, can you give us a brief explanation of what Follain is and the efforts that they made towards clean beauty?
Absolutely. Can I back up a little bit and just add a bit more about ingredients, what to look for as consumers to avoid and how it affects the body, just to add on what we've touched on, and then I'll get into Follain a bit more. But I know you touched just a little bit now on routes of exposure, and I believe in your programs you should have a little diagram of this, but just really quickly, the main way we're exposed to these chemicals is through 4 ways: skin contact, skin absorption, inhalation, and ingestion through the mouth. Right, so we put a product on our body, or it touches our skin, we can absorb it there. Lipsticks, lip products, you actually will ingest that through the lips. And then inhalation, if you have something that's a powder, a spray, certain things react with heat, and you wouldn't know it, but they're releasing volatile and semi-volatile compounds. So you might be using your shampoo in the shower, and it's actually releasing, a gas you can't see, essentially. And then just to touch on ingredients, like what should I be avoiding, why, what are the concerns, right? So you just went really in depth on that, but kind of product-wise and ingredient-wise, the range of concerns that are in personal care product ingredients is going to be endocrine disruption, carcinogens, cell and DNA damage, environmental concerns, which I'd love to get more into depth on later, just skin irritants, eye irritants, allergens, neurotoxicity, organ toxicity. So this is kind of the wide range of concerns that we have as people who use products. And then also just to touch on some specific concerns with ingredients. There's so many ingredients, so we don't have time to get into all of it, but just a few that I think are more common to see on packaging, such as like parabens, phthalates, right, which are endocrine disruptors. These ingredients all have purposes in the products, and then PEGs are another one. Okay, I'll bring this back to Follain though, to getting carried away. But yeah, so Follain is a clean beauty retailer that carries over 60 brands plus our own brand of products. And it's a curated selection of, as I said, clean beauty. We have our own definition of that. Products for skincare is the focus, but there's hair care, body care, makeup, a little bit of everything. And so at Follain we have a pretty extensive restricted ingredient list that we like to think is one of the most expansive ones in the industry, just looking at what other brands out there are doing. And our founder, Tara Foley, kind of came to this from public policy. That's what she studied and was interested in. So I think what sets Follain apart from other clean beauty retailers is that we're a curated selection. So what a lot of other stores out there do is they'll find a brand, they'll say, okay, this brand, we like their ingredients, we're going to carry the whole line. Follain evaluates products on a product-to-product basis. So they're going to say, okay, we like the ingredients in this one product from this brand, but that doesn't mean we're just going to accept everything from the entire brand. So it's very specific in terms of the process to approve a product. And then we're also really big on products being super effective, right? We don't just want great ingredients, we want products that are going to really work and people are going to have great results from them. So that's a bit about Follain, and just to touch on some of the things on our restricted ingredient list, which you can find on our website. If you scroll to the bottom, it says restricted ingredient list, and it's very user-friendly, and it gives a good overview of some ingredients to avoid, which is a bit more extensive than the Dirty Dozen, which is kind of a typical list that the G does, similar to the one you see for produce, like the Dirty Dozen, the Clean 15 for pesticides and produce, there is a Dirty Dozen for cosmetic ingredients. Follain's list is a little bit longer, but it's really just all about protecting our health and the environment's health. I think, the environmental stuff is huge as well. And also, if there isn't enough research available on something, we're not going to carry that as well, because there's just so many unknowns of what has actually been researched, and sometimes the ways ingredients have been researched is limited, so we have a lot of questions about their safety. But parabens, phthalates, triclosan, PEGs. I think this is kind of a fun tidbit I'll just throw out. If you see on an ingredient label, it will say like PEG dash a number, that those are polyethylene oxides, and they're not harmful in themselves, but the way that they're processed is essentially they're an ethoxylated ingredient, which is the chemical reaction made to form those ingredients, and in that reaction, they can often be contaminated with 1,4-dioxide, which is a very strong carcinogen. So, there's phenoxyethanol is an ingredient you see that replaces parabens as a preservative very often. I'm really shocked by the number of quote-unquote like clean brands that will use that as their preservative, and once again, it's an ethoxylated ingredient. There is that concern for carcinogenic contamination. So I could go on, but that's kind of just a brief tidbit of some ingredient concerns.
Sorry, so you said EWG, so just it's the environmental working group. So for example, if there's a product that you're using and you wanted to know more information about if it's reliable, if it's safe, you can look for that product in the environmental working group as they test the products. One caveat to that, and Adeno Llanos at Rutgers University is working with them, is that a lot of the products that minorities use have not been tested through the environmental working group. So some of her research is to identify products that minorities are reporting to use and reporting that to the environmental working group so that they can search that product and determine its toxicity level. Another group is Silent Spring Institute by Julia Brody, and she actually also, it's a research institute that delves into products and the safety of those products, and she has a phone app called Detox Me, where you can scan the barcode of your particular personal care product, and if they've looked at it, it'll come up and tell you, we suggest you replace this because it contains XYZ. So in talking about triclosan, if you scanned Colgate, I think it's extra whitening, then Silent Spring Institute may say triclosan is a level 1 carcinogen, which is the highest level for causing cancer. And so it's level 1 is considered like this has been proven to cause cancer in humans, but it is in certain Colgate. So.
Yeah, and there are a lot of great apps out there if you all want to just explore and download and see what might work for you. The Environmental Working Group, EWG, and then Detox Me were two of the ones that Jasmine mentioned. There's also Think Dirty and The Good Guide. And again, you can either search or you can scan a barcode and it'll pop up. And with like The Good Guide, for example, it'll give you a rating from 1 to 10 about how great this product is, 10 being the highest. Again, the issue is that many ethnic products are not in that database. But there are efforts to include more products. So.
And we've given the audience quite a bit of information in a short bit of time. So before we continue on to more solutions and what we is actively doing, does anybody have any questions thus far? No? Okay, so we'll keep on moving.
Can you repeat the name of the apps that you mentioned?
Yeah. Yes, so is it in the program? Okay, great. Yeah, there is in the program. There's I think there's about 6 apps that are listed there. And so you can take a look at those, you can download them onto your phone. You can actually, if you don't want to download the app, you can go to many of the websites. But some of the top ones that I've seen are Detox Me, EWG's app, The Good Guide, and Think Dirty. Those are the top ones for me.
Are any of the apps that you say have more food products than the other ones?
I'm not sure explicitly. I do know the researcher behind Detox Me, and I know she's consistently growing, mainly because her belief is that some of the health disparities that we're seeing may be due to environmental exposures, and so I know that she's adding, but also Environmental Working Group is working with researchers. So those are the main two that I know who are working with scientific researchers to expand. And I also just want to add that I think in general, I think across the board, I'm sure everyone is very keen to add these products because of the research that has recently come out with the association of hair relaxers and hair dyes being associated with breast cancer. And these were large studies. They were longitudinal, meaning that they were asked the question about their hair dyes and asked the question about hair relaxers before they developed cancer. So they weren't biased in any way. And so there is continuous research now being shown that there is a strong outcome. It's not just that a study that we had with Tamara James Todd at Harvard showed, and this is consistent in the literature, that using these products causes earlier puberty. But some people may throw that fact away because there's so many other things that can cause earlier puberty. But you can't throw away the association between a hard outcome like breast cancer. And so a lot of studies, large studies, are coming out with those associations.
And Lubna or Follain, can you all kind of speak on exactly what We Act has been doing to combat a lot of these issues within the beauty space?
Earlier this year we launched a campaign called Beauty Inside Out, and that is really, the campaign is centered around educating women, particularly women of color, about the toxicity of personal care products. And this is a conversation that we feel we're not having enough. As was mentioned before, there is this Eurocentric standard of what is deemed beautiful that has really penetrated the socio-cultural standard of beauty, not only in the US, but really globally. And so there are products that are marketed toward and used by women of color that contain some of the most toxic ingredients in the beauty industry. And we have been talking about, like, what does that look like in our own community? And so right now, one of the things that we're doing is we are designing a community survey for women of color. We hope to administer it in the community of Northern Manhattan, so West Central, East Harlem, Washington Heights, and Inwood, administer it amongst about 400 to 500 women of color to really gain an understanding of what is the landscape of this in our community, because there is very little data about this. We have kind of these conversations and the information is highly anecdotal. I mean, it's based in a lot of science, but we don't have data specifically for our community, and that's something that We Act is seeking. And so through this survey, we hope to ask women, where are you buying these products? How much do you spend on these products? When did you begin using these products? Do you use these products on your children? Asking if they know where their products originally came from, and really also understanding the attitudes and perceptions towards the products. Why do you use them? How does it make you feel? And we hope by gathering this data, one, we'll have hard quantitative data that can then be a springboard for future research that we hope to do with, for example, the Department of Health or with Columbia University. And eventually what we really hope to do is kind of launch into this marketplace campaign where we can really target a manufacturer or retailer and identify certain products that are particularly popular and get them off the shelves. And this is especially important for young girls. As Jasmine mentioned, your developing years are, there's a window of susceptibility where your body is particularly delicate because you're developing. And there was actually just a new study that came out from Tamara James Todd and some other researchers that really highlights the fact that your teen years are when you start to begin to use these products, and you're really experimenting with what works, what doesn't work, and so you're kind of like overloading your body with these chemicals, and it's this really delicate period of your life. So the bottom line is, we do need to learn more about the landscape of this issue, and we really hope to gain that specifically in the community of Northern Manhattan.
And just to kind of give you all a larger view of our long-term strategy, We Act not only works here locally in the city and at the state level, but we also work at the federal level to make sure that we are using our platform, our experience, whether it's through the research that we've done through all the community work that we've done here, but also just leveraging the fact that as an organization, one of the few EJ organizations in Washington, D.C., that we have an important voice. And so as we look at federal regulations around personal care products, around cosmetic products, there's a very big problem. The FDA's regs on regulating this industry is over 81 years old. So the last time the FDA, I know, right? Isn't that horrible? The last time the FDA updated the rules in terms of regulating all of these products that we use, the numbers, 12 products a day if you're a woman, etc., 168 unique chemicals you're being exposed to. The last time that there's been any type of update was in 1938. And the regs on that, it's all of 2.5 pages long. So imagine not only how old and how antiquated that law must be, but then all of the products that have been introduced into the market in that 81-year period where there's been no oversight in terms of the chemicals that are in them and how they impact our bodies. So right now there's two pieces of legislation that we were endorsing. One was released in the end of September, October, the Safer Cosmetics and Personal Care Act. Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky from my hometown in Evanston, Illinois, introduced that. And just last week, the Natural Cosmetic Cosmetic Care Act was introduced by Patrick Maloney, who's a congressman here from New York, and we're endorsing both of those. And both of them speak to the fact that not only are these rules old, but there aren't any kind of stipulations in place. Even for if a product you go to the store to right now says natural on it, who knows what that means? There's no one regulating that. There's no one saying that no, this is inappropriate or that it should be removed from the shelves. And specifically the Natural Cosmetic Care Act, that one is requiring that for a product to be labeled natural, that 70% of the ingredients must be natural ingredients. And so imagine that, in your closet right now, you have something, if you're really proud of yourself, oh girl, this works on my hair, and it's natural. But I'm telling you, you don't know that. You don't know that at all. And there's no one saying that this has been mislabeled or this is inappropriate. So how do we push back against that? So we're leveraging our position in Washington, D.C. to not only, lift up the things that we're seeing here in New York, but we're seeing nationwide and all of the studies that have shown how women of color are impacted. And there was just a Nielsen report, and the report was super cute. It's titled, African American Women's Consumer Power, Our Science, Her Magic. It's like Her Magic. It's really cute. But it speaks to the fact that 59% of Black women are willing to pay more for a product that they believe is environmentally safe. But there's no way to really tell. So where we have all of this buying power, we have all of these designs and desires to not have relaxers, to use products that we think are safer because of how they've been labeled, but no one is holding anybody accountable, and we can't have that. We don't deserve that. Our money is worth more than that. Our health is worth more than that. And so in DC, those two bills that I mentioned to you are currently things that we're really hoping get pushed through Congress, but we also have to recognize that with anything at the federal level, you can have a House that is incredibly progressive, but until you have a Senate that matches that and has people who are on both sides of the aisle, particularly interested not only in the products that we buy, but in the health and well-being of women of color, that these types of important legislations and updates to the FDA's rules and regs will not change. So we can make demands, but we must come together. So every one of you in this room has the power to not only work with us collectively to get this message out nationally. We hope to have these conversations not only in New York, but we hope to have them in Texas. We hope to have them in Michigan. We hope to have them in Georgia and in other parts of the country, because we deserve this information and we deserve to have the tools to move appropriately. So if you want to get with us today, this is your opportunity, because you have friends all over the country who don't know, and now you know, and it's in your best interest to share this information with your friends.
That was so beautifully said. Thank you. I definitely want to just add a couple of things. Yeah, as you mentioned, the regulations in the U.S. are very, very outdated. So the FDA bans about 11 ingredients in personal care products. Meanwhile, the European Union bans over 1,000, which is still not enough, might I add. But you can see that disparity is huge. And the other thing, which was touched on briefly, is just that the ingredients in your products are not legally required to all be listed. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this, some legal loopholes. One is that the ingredient is a contaminant, right? So it's not intentionally put in the product. Two is it's a byproduct of multiple ingredients in the product reacting together to create something else harmful. The other reason is, the biggest loophole would be the ingredient fragrance. If you see fragrance on any ingredient list, fragrance or parfum, that could be up to 3,000 undisclosed ingredients. They are legally not required to list anything in there. It's trade secret, right? So there's a whole other ingredient list you're not even seeing on the bottle. And then there's just a whole category of products where they don't require any kinds of ingredient listing, which is why this was so important with the menstrual products, right? You're not required to see what's in that. And just other things you might not think of, like if you've ever seen those little moisture strips on a disposable razor, just there's these little products where they don't have to disclose anything. So the next thing I wanted to mention is there are a couple independent bodies that have certifications to help you choose products that are a little bit safer, right? There's so much greenwashing and cleanwashing, as there's no legal definition for natural, clean. You can see anything on the front of the bottle, and it really, unfortunately, means nothing at this point. You have to go to the ingredient list and say, what is actually in this? Because a lot of times, those products will have, say, one ingredient that's great on its own, but it's mixed in with a bunch of toxic sludge, so it's not actually doing anything for you, right, at that point. But three kind of bodies I wanted to mention were Made Safe, Cosmos, and EcoCert. So Made Safe is doing really fantastic work. They, essentially for these are three certifications that a brand would apply to have their products meet the criteria of these labels. So just in the same way that, agriculture needs to go through all the marks to be certified USDA organic, which you can actually have a USDA organic labeling on a personal care product, so that's something to look for. Made Safe has a whole criteria that brands would need to pass for safety in personal care products, and then Cosmos and EcoCert are European. They're very interesting because in addition to product safety, they look very heavily at the sustainable agriculture side of whatever is being produced in the product. So I think those are great resources. We just need kind of that level of rigor in our legislation as well to protect us. And then the other thing I just wanted to touch on is from what you were saying before about hormonal sensitivity, the fact that we're so hormonally sensitive as we're going through puberty, and that's the age where we're really starting to choose your own products for the first time, maybe independent of parents, and form personal care habits that are going to last long into your adult life. And it's an onslaught of toxic chemicals that are disrupting your hormones when you're in such a hormonally sensitive time. Same thing, of course, pregnancy, whatever you're using, is also being absorbed by the fetus, and that's why, like, you know, babies are being born now with chemicals already in their bloodstream, right? Which is from, I mean, it's from the whole geographic pattern of environmental injustice, and I see personal care products as really, it's just another dumping ground for toxic chemicals that our communities are being burdened with, you know, unfairly, and it's very upsetting. And then, one more, last piece is just that, yeah, I really believe young children need better education for this, so that you don't have to have that happen, you know, at a young age, beginning those habits. I think like preteen is the age where people should be getting this education, because even the products we use as babies and kids, most of these ingredients, when they are tested for safety, they're tested on adults. So we don't even know what these, you know, safety is for, you know, babies and young kids and what impact it's having on their body.
Just what?
You mentioned two names of either organizations after it made safe, but you said them really quickly. Could you say them slowly so we can take notes?
Absolutely. One is EcoCert.
EcoCert?
EcoCert.
Okay.
And the other is Cosmos. So EcoCert, ECOCERT, Cosmos, COSMOS.
Great, thanks.
Hi, I just really want to ask, Dr. Jasmine, I did meet you before, but I just want to bring up regarding ingredients, and I think it's a very important ingredient that's very overlooked, and that's aluminum. And when you talk about hair dye, has there been studies showing if there's aluminum in hair dyes as well? They are in deodorants, and our government just refuses to acknowledge aluminum. It has been found in patients with Alzheimer's and dementia. So if they're found in patients with these illnesses, they have to be affecting us somehow in the beauty industry. So can you shed a little light on that and what is being done to bring more attention to aluminum in our products?
Yeah, so I can't really speak directly to aluminum, but I can speak to mixtures. So more research is being done based off of the fact that if you were talking about a hair dye, there's a lot of ingredients. And so one Silent Spring Institute does this, and they have a study where they pick different hair dyes, different hair relaxers, and they didn't necessarily go into like this particular product that was in it. What they did is they did like a diagram that said, when we measured this one particular product that you would put on your hair, these are the mixtures that you're exposed to. And so emphasizing that you're not just exposed to maybe aluminum or maybe paraben. The fact that these chemicals are mixing together and also having byproducts and different reactions. And also putting together the fact that you may be using the hair relaxer or the hair dye along with other products. So the field is now moving kind of towards mixtures, because our scientific ability has gone to that way, but also because we're not really finding the strong associations that we thought we would when we look at individual items. So if you look at individually at one particular phthalate, some people are showing strong associations for positive, and then some people show no association. And so it's always been like, so is this particular phthalate out of all of the phthalates associated with this outcome? And so people have gone to the notion of, well, alone, maybe we don't see it, but together, and that's the way it's always presented. You're never just affected by monoethyl phthalate. You're affected by monoethyl phthalate, dibutyl phthalate, and monoparaben, and etc. So more people are moving towards that frame. And there was a recent study done by Leonardo Tresande, I believe he's at NYU, and he was looking at the notion of EDCs and the cost to our overall health. Because though we're talking about reproductive health, endocrine disrupting chemicals have been shown to have issues with decreased intellectual ability. It's been shown to be associated with diabetes and other chronic diseases. And so he did a study where he asked, like, I'm not gonna look at one particular EDC. I'm gonna look at the conglomeration of endocrine disrupting chemicals, and I'm gonna look at the levels that are in minorities associated with the notion of the disease. And so, long story short, what he found is that though minorities only make up 1/3 of the population at this point, they made up nearly 50% of endocrine disruptor chemical related conditions, which included the decreased intellectual ability, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we're starting to appreciate that we can't just pick one particular ingredient, and that we have to really look at how these are all together.
And I think we have one question.
I just wanted to say really quickly about aluminum. It is an all antiperspirant. What antiperspirant is, it's aluminum blocking the sweat duct to prevent you from sweating. So I mean, at Follain, we recommend moving away from that just because of the linkage with Alzheimer's, neurotoxicity, endocrine disruption. So that can be a tricky, like a scary transition for people, because if you're used to having, you know, the sweat being completely blocked, it's a little bit different with a natural deodorant, but it's a really important switch because armpit is also a specifically more sensitive area, and you've got, you know, your lymph nodes right there too, so potentially there's also, you know, you will have aluminum, but you'll also have parabens, other things in that deodorant as well, and then not being able to detox through your sweat in the proximity to the lymph nodes is really not helpful to the body at all. So we definitely have a lot of recommendations about switching to a natural deodorant. It will take the body about 2 to 3 weeks to adjust from a traditional aluminum-based antiperspirant to a non-toxic deodorant. We have some kind of tips for that process, but would definitely recommend removing it, because as you said, most of these companies, if you ask them, they'll claim, oh, the amount of this chemical, it's insignificant to be harmful, but it really is in conjunction with tons of ingredients, and then in conjunction with your 12 or more other products being used every day. So it's cumulative, so many ingredients all together, and long term that really has an effect on the body.
And Peggy has a question.
Yeah, so my question is around fragrance. We really haven't talked about fragrance, and of course that's a phthalate, helps make fragrance. And I've often thought that one of the easiest ways we could begin to address prevention is to look at an ingredient, and if it has fragrance, we don't buy it. You know, a lot of people have stopped wearing perfume because fragrance is basically a whole bunch of chemicals that are not good for you. Or fragrance is in lotion, or whatever it is, or cosmetic. I just try not to buy it. And so I wanted to know from you, Jasmine, what you think about the concept of fragrance.
Yes, so I too have been very cognizant that, especially with fragrance existing not just phthalates, but a lot of different mixtures that they don't have to disclose because it is proprietary, trying to just go fragrance free. And not going with a product that says fragrance free, but going to the actual ingredient list and making sure it doesn't have fragrance or phthalates. Because one can say fragrance free, but I promise you when you smell that, it's like, well, that smells so good. It's probably because something else is added in addition. So I do agree with that, and it's something that's easily modifiable when you're picking your products. Another thing, like we talking about buying perfume-free, parfum-free, and also talking about deodorants, I know personally that this may be all overwhelming. So the idea of, oh my gosh, so my face lotion has to change, and how am I gonna do my twist outs? I know that there's a lot of, it can be very anxiety driven. And so even as, I definitely, you promoted me, but I'm an assistant professor. But I'm also a mother of a rambunctious 4-year-old. And me being in the store and picking products is like the last thing that I have time to do. So what I try to do is do things in stages. And I pick for my child, mainly because I believe in windows of susceptibility, and I believe there's a period of time where in your life course as a male and a female, your body is just more susceptible to carcinogenic or maladaptive things that can lead to adult chronic disease. So just like you get your kids vaccinated, or you make sure that they're, however you take care of your children, the preemptive things you do, I pick for my child. And then when I was pregnant, I stayed away from certain products because that's a sensitive time. And then the other thing is I do, like anything I put on my body every single day that I don't wash off, I make sure that doesn't have anything harmful in it as well. So there's like baby steps that you can take to make this more digestible.
And just one last question, as we wrap this up.
You know what, I find this to be mirroring, of course, the food industry. You know, now you're having like natural, it doesn't have to be natural ingredients. A lot of people are lobbying to make sure that the food industry is changing. Is there a way to do to correlate with them to kind of get things passed along, or is it two separate, different things? It sounds like the process is a little bit similar.
Well, the Food and Drug Administration manages both, you know, what's in food and both what's in our personal care and our cosmetics products. But what we've seen just time and time again is a lot of these bureaucracies in many ways get bought off through lobbyists who have specific interests, and they might want to oppose bills like the ones that we're endorsing around personal care products. Imagine the cosmetic industry and what they feel and how that type of regulation will slow down, you know, their ability to bring things to market, and also the type, you know, if something is, if there's a dirty dozen chemical in some of these products that are currently on the shelves now, and if something like what we're supporting actually gets passed, a lot of those things will have to, you know, come off the shelf. And in many cases, we understand that maybe in Europe they're way more progressive, but we're very behind. The rules are old, the products are very harmful, and there's no accountability there. So yes, they do, it should mirror, you know, in terms of, you know, the food that we have in the market and then the products. But we see even with food and all of these topics, it's the same consistent problem where the rules are just old and there's no accountability. And that's why this campaign is incredibly important, because we do want to figure out how do we pass this legislation. We've done some good work here in New York State. Now, how do we translate that into momentum nationally? And, you know, I think what we really need to see, you know, figure out how you can support the work that we're doing. You know, we are a membership-based organization, and as mentioned, we're encouraging folks to get membership today, you know, whether it's through the $25 membership base, but we want to use those funds to help build up this national campaign to increase awareness, and then also begin the important step of engaging with our members of Congress on both the Senate and the House side to ask them to pass what is really meaningful legislation that will benefit all of us. On the back table is a petition. Please sign that petition. We'll also be posting an electronic version of the petition on our website, because if we can show that there's a growing number and interest of not only people wanting to become educated, but people demanding change because we don't want to be poisoned by the products that we're purchasing, we can then push and show just nationally that there needs to be a change. So yes, the regs are old, the administration and the agencies that should be regulating aren't, but we have the opportunity to change that through, you know, just really unified efforts to show that there's interest in this topic.
Just wanted to add one thing in the spirit of getting involved with We Act. So right now we're finalizing our 2020 policy agenda, which we'll be presenting out at our membership meeting this Saturday. So again, we encourage you all to join our membership and be a part of the conversation. Before Saturday, so on Friday, the day after tomorrow, I would really love for, especially the women in this room, to be involved with the focus group that Evelyn and I are leading. And this is really to get feedback on the survey that I mentioned earlier. We are designing a survey that will be administered amongst almost 500 women in this community, and we want to know what you think about it. So I have a sign-up sheet here, which I will put on the back table later. The focus group is this Friday at 6 p.m. at the WEAC office. We're providing dinner. We're going to give you a $25 stipend. So please come through. We would love your feedback, going through the survey, and then us having a conversation about how did you feel about the questions? Were they culturally appropriate? The survey is also going to be in English and in Spanish, so really would love some Spanish-speaking women to come through and give their feedback, because there's so many words for one thing, right? Skin lightening, skin brightening. What is the proper diction that we should be using? And we really want to work with you all in the community to get to kind of the best survey that we can possibly have. This Friday, 6 p.m. Sign up, please.
Yes, hi. Do you have anything specific to say about acne or blemish care? It's sort of a quasi-medical area, but there are a lot of products on shelves.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to this personally as well, just because part of what got me into this whole sphere was just struggling with terrible acne and eczema, and searching for products. Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of acne medication is a little bit more regulated, I would say, like even some of the topical stuff in terms of the percentage of certain ingredients. Though I would say a majority of what's out there, like in terms of conventional products, can be some of the more toxic and harsh stuff that's going to be definitely, just from a skincare perspective, more sensitizing to the skin. But in short, I guess there's a lot of fantastic natural options out there. So I wouldn't fear in terms of finding non-toxic alternatives. There's lots of great options. Can I just respond to what you were saying a little bit before? Just that, yeah, I don't know if anyone's seen in the news in recent times that the FDA doesn't even have the power to recall products with asbestos in them, just in terms of how bad the situation is. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask a question about sensitive skin, because there's a lot of products marketed for sensitive skin, and also based on the last question, chemical peels, because a lot of people use chemical peels to address acne, or if they're not using chemical peels outright, they're using, like mild things that dry out the skin and exfoliate it. And so what about that whole area beyond feminine, like monthly feminine hygiene products, but things that are marketed to people because they have sensitivities, or marketed to people because, they're experiencing some sort of really public issue with their skin? And how would one go about judging those products? Or are they in the same things known about them? Are they in the same bucket?
Well, I can definitely speak to if they're in the same bucket. So a study was done recently where a comprehensive list of products were everything from the personal care products we're talking about, but also nail polish or the lotions you use, and etc. The thing about research is though, if those products are rare in the population, they will end up being kind of clumped together amongst other rare products. So for example, if a product was marketed as sensitive skin lotion, it's going to be clumped in an analysis in lotions, just because of the nature of how we do population studies. But that isn't to say that that particular product doesn't have something in it that may be more harmful or least harmful. But just speaking on when we talk about these individual products from a scientific standpoint, a lot of them get clumped together. Like, there's thousands of hair relaxers when you go to the store, but we don't talk about like just me hair relaxer. It all gets clumped. So I think you can probably talk more about the different products that may be best for sensitive skin, but I know that you're pretty much talking about an exposure that may not be chronic. Like you're saying, things that you're not putting on your body on a regular basis, things that are not routine. And I do think there is something to be said about, you know, choosing what your regimen is, especially if you have a medical condition or a condition that prevents you from operating at the level that you want to operate in life. With that said, always choose the safest option. And then I don't think that safe to some of us will always be 100% free of chemicals. But if you have a celiac disease, and we were just talking about that, I am personally not going to buy a gluten-free lotion, but I don't have celiac disease, and I can't make that personal decision. I don't have severe eczema. So one thing I have to say is, like, as a scientist, we talk about the population, but there are individual choices that you have to make.
And I think we have to close it out on that note. Can we give a round of applause for all of us? Right after Peggy gives her remarks to sign up and become a part of REACT and get involved. So thank you.
So thank you to our moderators like Newby, Jasmine McDonald, Lubna, Ahmed, Kiana, and Kerene down there. I want to thank our staff. Samantha, Morgan, Dana, Evelyn, Chris, and all of the REACT staff, thank you so much for helping us put this together and get all of you here today. But I do see a few men here, and I just want to mention that almost every day men are putting on that shaving cologne and that shaving lotion. And that is just not good. And I tell my husband that every day, he's spraying it. And just really think about an alternative, guys. You know, just want you all to be healthy as well. So I just want to close out and say, please visit weact.org, weact.org is our website. And please send a letter to your congressman for the New York State Safe Products Act. And that's really important to get the governor to sign that. It's the Child Safe Products Act. Is that correct? Carmen, absolutely. So please check our website. We're having a membership meeting this Saturday to talk about our policy agenda. And again, the second Saturday of every month, WEACT is having membership meetings to talk about policy and the whole range of environmental exposures that impact our community. Thank you all so much. Thank our panel again, please. So thank you for coming out. We have a lot of refreshments left. Please gobble them all up. Thank you. Bye-bye. Oh, and again, we've got our beauty inside out t-shirts and memberships, so please think about that and consider one. Good night.